YouTubers on the planet.
Self-proclaimed disaffected liberal, and he's got a great podcast.
The host of Timcast IRL. The news you're getting comes straight from me and straight from the source. You have to strive, you have to struggle, you have to fail, and pick yourself back up. And I think you were saying this earlier, if not the component of what the culture war is the destruction of Christianity. The machine state says, we don't care what they want. We want control and to maintain exactly what we're building. You know, what Turning Point USA is doing right here is one of the most important things. Bringing people together. People are meeting each other all throughout this building and even in the streets and at restaurants. That culture building is the most important thing. To our big end of the year show. This is amazing. We have so much to talk about, and we have a bunch of very amazing guests. So let's just get started. First, I want to call out our crew. You guys know him. Let's get Phil Labonte out here. He's wearing a suit. There they go. Next up, of course, Ian Crossland. Welcome Ian. Luke Rutkowski of We Are Change. So we have actually a lot of people who want to come on the show that we want to have on this show. And we're going to get started with a couple of really awesome guests. Let's first introduce Michael Knowles. And it's an honor and privilege to have this gentleman joining us. Matt Gates. There's so much to talk about. And we're also going to be joined by Lisa Reynolds, Libby Emmons, and Charlie Kirk at some point as well, because there's a lot of voices we want to hear from. So right now, this is the crew we got going, and the first thing I want to say, this year started off with a lot of uncertainty. We didn't even know who was going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. There was speculation across the board. I would say that with this past November, we now do have certainty, especially considering it appears that our movement is the popular mandate, which is refreshing, it's a relief, and boy, that day, November 5th, came and went so quickly. None of us expected this. We thought we would be dealing with this for a week or so. But here we are now, with a bit more certainty, but still not necessarily knowing what's going to happen next year. You got crazy stories about SUV-sized drones flying over New Jersey. I heard a story, some guy said one landed on the highway as he's driving past it, and that flew up in the air and took off. These people, I've heard those stories more than once. But of course, I think the big thing we're trying to figure out now is this transition. What's going on with it? And Matt, I gotta say, we heard you're gonna be the top cop. And the moment I heard this, if you guys watched the show, you saw it, I immediately ran to Allison and Richie and I said, do we have any champagne? And we jumped in the Cybertruck, me and Richie, we sped off to a liquor store and I said, sir, give me your finest champagne. He said, here it is, it's $40. And I bought it and we popped that on the show to celebrate. It did come to fruition. But Matt, we really do believe in you. We think that you have the opportunity to do so much good. That you have done so much good. So let's hit it. What's next, and what can we expect?
All this time, I was wondering who jinxed me, and now I know. You went champagne before I had the chance to be confirmed by the Senate. Look, Donald Trump has changed our politics. The movement that we have built that is multi-generational, multiracial, is changing the way we are fielding candidates and winning elections. But don't kid yourself into thinking that in early November you changed Washington yet. Because there remains a repository of people in that town, some of them Republicans in the United States Senate, who actually want Trump to fail. They don't want this to be a durable, lasting enterprise. They're hoping this is like a kidney stone that they just have to painfully move through the system, right? And when you look at some of these folks, and we can talk about who they are, they had calcified a good deal of opposition against me, and the Attorney General position is unique in this regard. It's not the Ag Commissioner, though that's important. It's not the SBA or the Department of Labor, because day one, Donald Trump has a plan on the economy, on the regulatory climate, on the bureaucratic state, and on the largest deportation in American history, and he had to have an Attorney General there day one, and I am proud that Pam Bondi is going to be that Attorney General, and I think she's going to do a splendid job for this administration. Did you know her before? We both served in Florida together. We were elected the same year in 2010. I was the chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee when she was the state's Attorney General, and what we bonded over was our love of animals. We passed some of the strongest protections for animal welfare in the state. We have some of the toughest penalties for people who abuse animals. I think that she's got a good head on her shoulders. She's got a great relationship with the president, and I'm proud of her.
You think you would have liked that job?
Oh yeah, I would have loved that job. I really wanted to be Attorney General.
Having that job?
I think that there were a lot of people concerned about it. And what you watch above the line, right, where people say, we have questions about Gates's experience. We don't like, this or that about how he talks, or tweets, or his character. But really, I saw the lobby corps mobilize in pretty unique ways. Big Tech did not want me to be the Attorney General. And they have 3 lobbyists for every single member of Congress, and they deployed them against me. Big Pharma, the big defense industries, were worried that I would animate the antitrust division at the Department of Justice to go after some of the excesses in corporate power. I think the number 1 threat to your liberty is big government. The number 2 threat to your liberty is big business. And obviously the number 3 threat to your liberty is homeowners association.
So Matt, just
really quickly. Actually, Al-Qaeda started as a homeowners association. It's really big
in Florida. But really quick, if you were the Attorney General, what would be your first piece of business? Who would you go after first?
Well, I think that the first thing you have to do is effectuate the deportation. And you're going to have all kind of states and municipalities doing everything they can to achieve some injunction in like the Northern Mariana Islands that they try to spread around the country to freeze the presidency in that effort. And so I think the number 1 thing you have to do is build resilience against some of the plans that these blue state governors and blue state attorneys general have.
Now, is there any part of you, I don't want to be the glass half full guy, but I guess I am here. You've been in elected office since you were about 11 years old, and you've been through all these brutal, bloody fights. There's so much awful nonsense that goes with being an elected official. You can't really make much money. Everything you do is under constant scrutiny. People are always trying to attack you and demean you and your whole family. It's awful. And so I understand the AG job would be extremely fun and cool and awesome. But is there any part of you that says, wow, I'm not in the government anymore?
Any part of me that thinks that understands that Madison held the role of citizen as the top role in our society, not congressman or senator or president. And so I have very much enjoyed the promotion from congressman to citizen these last few weeks. But here's what we know about our movement, and it's distinct from what we've seen in politics in yesteryear. This is not a movement that is driven by some cabal of special interests in Washington or New York. There's not power brokers who centralize who gets to run or who gets to win. This is a diffused movement, and that's what makes it durable. That's what will make it lasting. And so I actually think there are roles for all of us to play throughout the enterprise. I mean, look at what you've done. Look at the audience you've built. Look at the way you activate people to go and engage with their beliefs and to actually challenge a lot of the dogmas that have kept people paralyzed for so long. And so I think we need those voices throughout. And who knows, Michael, maybe one day I'll run for the United States Senate and you and I can make a podcast together and then I won't be so damn poor. Like Ted Cruz. So
this is my... No, even on this point, it's kind of funny because, you've made the shift now to political media, which is great, by the way, as someone in political media. But I remember when we launched Verdict with Senator Cruz, this was the first political podcast, I think, for a sitting legislator. And the ethics rules are the elected can't make any money. So the podcast was doing very, very well. I mean, it hit #1 on the charts for a while, above Rogan. I would never have said Ted Cruz was going to beat Joe Rogan on the charts. Somehow, for a little bit, he did. But it did make me think. It's like, wow, the only guy who's not really enjoying all the fruits of this, is the U.S. Senate. And I get it, it's a separate, it's a great honor to be a member of the U.S. Senate, it's a great honor to be a member of Congress, to be up for a job, but I don't know, part of me thinks there are seasons to life, and you might run for Senate, you might run for president, I don't know what you're gonna do, but maybe being in the private sector for a while, maybe that will be enjoyable.
Well, and I do think that when you get people who never live under the laws they've written, it creates a disconnect that builds resentment appropriately among all of us. I think, like you say, you take your turn in, you do your work, and you live an honest life beyond that, and you never know when the bell rings again. May ring again in January.
This is hold on, big fear that
I just have to ask, because he's teed it up. You floated the other day a plan that I really, really loved. On Twitter, you said you're an elected member of the next Congress. So what you could do, if the members of Congress still want to mess around with you, you could vote, you could enter Congress on January 3rd. You could go in, you could get involved in the speaker race. You could start maybe pulling out some of the dirty laundry from the current and former members, and then you start showing Congress. You can nominate Elon Musk to be Speaker of the House.
It would be the most entertaining thing that happened in Congress in at least the past 6 months.
Yeah, since the last time I did something like this. No, the thought has crossed my mind because in the way the organizing Congress works, first the clerk calls the roll of everyone who shows up with an election certificate, and I'm pretty sure mine still works. And then after the roll is called for the speaker is sworn in and then swears in the body. And so some have suggested that if the speaker races are kind of my thing, it's kind of what I do. And so maybe we'll be in Washington that day to see that there's a speaker election that serves the country.
how do you feel about what I largely appreciate about that whole bet was this machine of IOUs and backroom deals and spending millions of dollars to put someone in power over the House. And that was dismantled overnight through your efforts and the others who joined you. We ended up with a new speaker. I'm curious how you think that's gone so far, considering where we are now with the continuing resolution.
Man, the corrupt muscle memory of Washington is very strong, and it is difficult to break through. And even things I thought would be more effective at rattling that system have shown its capability to respond. But look at what we just saw happen this last week. All the lobbyists wanted this 1,500-page bill that had every pork barrel project, funded the censorship industrial complex, gave every giveaway to the Democrats they wanted, and rhythmically, Congress always approves the multi-thousand-page December omnibus bill. It's never been defeated before since I've been around. And because of Elon Musk and Donald Trump and the X universe and our willingness to roll up our sleeves and actually get into the details of this stuff and shame the people who are willing to vote for it, that bill went down and every iteration of the government funding bill got
So where's it up?
That is ultimately the core of this discussion we're going to have over the next few hours. Where are we going to go leveraging that moment and that potential? That we have, look, Elon Musk just showed he's stronger than the entire Washington lobby corps combined. Every firm in Washington wanted that bill to pass. Every single one, and they got smoked.
Now the Democrats are calling him co-president.
Yeah, it kind of makes me nervous, but not in a
Bad way. Just that mob rule is very strong. If we wanted to mobilize in some rogue established order and then challenge the United States government, like the technology is available for people to reach 1 million people tomorrow. Like you can Facebook groups, you can mobilize. Like that's part of a lot of the riots and stuff we've seen over the last 20 years.
Don't you see how much easier it is for the bad guys to get what they want when we don't have that power?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, doesn't it speak to the empowerment of the American people? You get someone like Musk that can actually put out a call to his whatever many million followers he has, and then you see real tangible results. And it's something that's the whole point of representative government is the people that read Musk's tweet and agreed with him went ahead and they were calling their representatives and they said, hey, we don't want this, and it actually made a tangible change.
But I want to say, you mentioned Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and I definitely want to shout out Elon Musk for buying Twitter and fixing it. Now the corporate press, the established narrative is that Elon is the secret president pulling the puppet strings of Donald Trump. And it's because they don't want to admit that the reality is Elon Musk is just agreeing with all of you. When he makes a tweet, he just has 200 million followers. So it's not that Elon Musk goes to Trump and says, do what I want. It's that Elon Musk is part of the same community as all of us. And he says, yeah, we agree on these things. And they all hear it. They're going to focus on him because he's the boogeyman who took away their Twitter. But it's a movement that is pressuring Donald Trump to make better decisions.
He's like a community organizer. Seems to be his main role right now.
I'm just happy. I'm just really happy Ron Paul's in there, because if you look at all the roads that are leading to Ron Paul's right, there's a lot of them, and it's very significant. And I think truly this is something that isn't a radical idea. It's an idea that our money should actually go to the American people and not to the special interest groups and not to the lobbyists and not to bioweapons facilities and not to the censorship of Americans and not to the torture of small animals. And this kind of larger revolution is something very indicative of things to come in 2025, which I think will be a larger unraveling of a lot of the dirt, of a lot of the establishment, of a lot of the secrets that used to go on in Washington, D.C., but can't any longer because of Twitter, because of us, because of everyone speaking up in unison saying enough is enough.
But that is not self-activating. That does not have its own fiat. I do worry at times about the dynamic among the America Firsters and the MAGA nation that we just say, well, we won. We won. Trump's got it. Elon's got the reins. But if we are not diligent on these things, pointing out those frailties in the government decision-making process, it will persist.
Yeah, it's a great point, because the left doesn't stop just because there was a victory. We had a great victory this fall, but it's a victory in a much larger way.
So my fear, which I've been talking about the past couple of weeks, is that as we all mock these cable TV news channels that are collapsing in the ratings, they're getting 30,000 viewers in the keynote. I mean, it's ridiculously low. And so we gloat. We say, haha, we are the media now, it's the podcast presidency. But come on, if they can afford to pay Rachel Maddow $25 million for 1 year with that low of ratings, they're going to come back and say, who do we give $25 million to? Where do we put the billboards? Where do we buy the TV commercials? And they're going to try to flood this space and control this narrative as well.
Yeah,
They're going to try to buy it.
exactly.
Absolutely.
The control of the fiat is very dangerous, and it's allowed for massive entangled corruption and a sickened economy. So, I mean, I've heard that they want to maybe go into a Bitcoin reserve. I think Eric Trump was in Dubai, maybe at some crypto conference, talking about relieving tax burdens on like Ripple and Bitcoin, American cryptos, basically.
A reserve?
Do you think that that's a good thing to get away from the US dollar? Because it does disempower the American military in a lot of ways.
Our reserve is great. I'm excited for it. My concern right now is, can we control the messaging? So if they, sound money is a great place to start. Luke was mentioning all roads lead to Ron Paul or whatever we've talked about for some time. What can we do literally right now? Because a Bitcoin reserve coming in Trump's administration, we're all excited. But what can we do right now, as we know the corporate press is going to pull an empire strike?
It's track the money. That's why I brought it up, because with all this crypto, you can track it. It's the fiat's not just disappearing behind closed doors, 3 trillion gone, 250 million in somebody's offshore bank account. Like, you watch it tracked.
But it's not the corporate media, it's the intel agencies that control the corporate media. I think they're the ones that we have to be really worried about, since they're the ones flying the drones, they're the ones running the psyops, they're the ones that control still some social media algorithms, not all of them. They don't control Rumble, they don't control Twitter, but this is an information war that all of us are involved in. So people here that are watching, your part is essential here to getting activated, to getting engaged, to paying attention, and reaching out to your elected representatives and saying, this is what I want, this is what I demand.
I agree with both. What do we think? What do you guys think the next move is going to be from a corporate press, knowing that they've lost the narrative control and they have to regain it? Is it going to be trying censorship again? It's going to be
No, they're going to try to co-opt Trump in the administration.
Yeah.
They cannot defeat him. They could not do the sufficient lawfare, and so there will be an intense effort at co-option. We see that underway now with who's paying money for the inaugural.
And ABC News inadvertently is spending $15 million on presidential Trump library and casino. It is going to do well for Atlanta. So they're doing it. They're paying for that. I think, Matt, I think you're totally right. A lot of people said after 2016 that had Schumer and Pelosi been able to control themselves and they played their cards right, they would have tried to suck up to Trump. They would have tried to make a deal. And look, maybe Trump makes deals. Maybe they could have had a little influence. because they called him Hitler 2.0, they so radicalized him that he was hanging around with great people, very, very good people, folks, and so we had a good term. So this time, your point, Matt, seems is, well, maybe they've learned their lesson, and actually maybe their back's just against the wall, and this is the only move they have. That's a dangerous move that they could make, though.
Yeah, well, think about where we were at this point in 2017. They were saying that Trump was a Russian agent, and that we were all convinced to vote for him by Vladimir Putin from $180,000 in Facebook ads. That was the official narrative of the last time Trump was going through this process, and now they're just lapping praise on him. But Trump's a smart cookie, and this whole effort that you saw today in these last few days, where Democrats have said, it's Elon pulling Trump strings. Alphas want to be around other alphas, and that's what Trump does. Like, Trump sits me down one day at Mar-a-Lago and he says, "Man, I have a lot of geniuses. You're one of my geniuses, but now I have a super genius." and the mutual admiration creates a real ecosystem of creativity and drive, and you want to be around it. Talented people want to be engaged. The applications they've gotten for Doge, people wanting to use their skills to take a meat cleaver to the excesses of government, is actually giving us a lot of hope.
And they really should not have banned Babylon Bee.
Right. Think about the dominoes falling from just banning a Christian satire publication. Change the course of American history, literally.
I feel like in addition to the co-option of Trump, or at least the attempted co-option by the, what do you call it, deep state media apparatus, I don't know, is that it's mimicry. They tend to mimic what's working, or they'll try. Like Hollywood's downsizing right now. They want their films to look grainier, look like they're shot on iPhones on purpose.
Yeah.
Because that's what people enjoy seeing. So watch like podcasts. I don't know if there's going to be secret money. Do you think it's too risky to track all the money? Is it?
I think that we're going there. The next step in crypto, I don't think it'll be the reserve. I think it'll be the stablecoin legislation. And then once you have stablecoin confidence, then you're going to tokenize everything with the dollar anyway. The dollar gets tokenized. You think the big banks are going to sit back and watch Ripple like take their market share, right? It rhymes with nipple. What you're going to see is Bank of America, Capital, these major institutions, Wells Fargo, tokenizing the dollar first.
That'll be trackable, ideally, but then is there going to be like dark dollars that are just interested?
The darkest dollars are the US dollar. Okay, for all of the criticism that crypto is used for all kind of bad things, the US dollar is used for a lot of those things as well.
The most untraceable kind of currency is actually fiat dollars, because if you have them and you give them to someone else in person, there's no record of it. Whereas if you transfer most, not all, if you transfer most cryptocurrencies and have the technology to do it, you know how to do it, you can look at the ledger and it's all written out.
And for millennia, that's been a good thing for people to bypass tyranny, is they can still trade. But if they're somehow locked down in this uber sensorial
central bank digital currency, maybe something. And so I think this is something important to talk about, because I don't know about you guys, but one of the biggest fears I have for 2025 is the Federal Reserve, is the Ponzi scheme banking system, finagling and doing a lot of dirty tricks against Donald Trump, against the US dollar, against the best interest of America. Because if there ever was an opportune time to kind of go after the dollar, go after America financially, it would be under Donald Trump's presidency. And I think that's why this larger conversation about Bitcoin and other alternatives is so key and so important right now. But do you guys share that fear, or?
Well, I think that you'll see that manifest first when the Fed goes after crypto. Yeah. Right? I mean, there's going to be some effort to disrupt that marketplace even more, but I am encouraged by how resilient crypto has been. Like, I like an asset class that has actually suffered some dives and has shown rebound.
The resiliency of things like Bitcoin in particular is built into the blockchain, if I understand correctly, and that's a benefit for all people, like not just Americans, which I mean, obviously I want to see America do better than any other country in the world, but it is a good thing that it's decentralized and that it's something that is outside the control of any one nation state.
The coin, well, so you said something really scary, in that they would tokenize the dollar.
Yeah.
That means every dollar is tracked, no matter what you do. They know what
By the way,
you're doing.
you don't think that's happening to a pretty large extent. Now, you go withdraw $5,000 in cash from the bank, there's going to be a suspicious activity report, there's going to be a review of where those dollars moved, where they changed hands, where they were deposited. So you're already living in that world. I think it accelerates rapidly with the tokenized dollar.
I was wondering in terms of the coins, you say some of them were resilient like Bitcoin. All of my Hawktua coin holdings have not been resilient to market forces. There have been some others, the coin about flatulence and a few others.
You're a brave man to admit that you bought Hawktua.
I will say my Dogecoin has improved markedly.
You know, the one that I did buy, I'm a terrible investor and I own very little crypto, but I did buy LGB coin. Not LGBT coin, but it was the Let's Go branded coin. I said, okay.
Patriot token or something.
Did it? Do I get my money back? Because I don't know. I might have been wrong about that. I don't know. That dropped to nothing. I did not become a trillionaire. So the real question I have, knowing nothing about crypto, is certain. I mean,
It was
Bitcoin.
that was the FJB token.
FJB.
Yeah, sorry,
FJB. I picked the wrong stock.
My bad.
I picked the wrong penny stock. There does seem to be this issue of like pump and dumps just going on in all these meme coins, but it's funny. I sort of don't want to regulate it because it's funny to watch. But at a certain point, mustn't there be some regulation of these meme coins, of crypto outside of Bitcoin, a distinction between other crypto and Bitcoin? I don't.
Does it harken back to the .com bubble, where like you would just see roses.com and it's a massive spike in valuation, and then there's actually no business behind it.
Yeah.
So we went through this exact cycle before in the 90s, and what happens is there's 3 or 4 winners that emerge out of the space that dominate the marketplace, and then you get the system out there.
And a bunch of desperate people are buying, they're putting their life savings into the next meme coin. Like meme coin is a new phrase, if you've heard that, where people are like, I'm all in on this new meme coin. Whatever there are, Shiba Inu token was one, Doge was a meme
Wait,
coin.
hold on. If somebody's putting their life savings into the meme coin, is that like a certain feature of economic Darwinism that we're willing to tolerate? Because I've got a pretty strong stomach for that these days.
Maybe I'm a little more authoritarian. I feel like there is a role in government to protect people from themselves once in a while.
Disavow.
Absolutely. Once in a while. Like you don't want them to eat addictive poisons, ideally, because that can toxify your. You don't want them dumping wastes into the river.
Well, you're not protecting people from themselves. Then you're protecting people from other people.
Yes.
If you're protecting people from themselves, that's a totally different topic.
But how, like,
I want to be protected from the government.
someone that harms himself might end up more likely to harm someone else. For instance, you kind of want to nip it in the bud.
The way I know Ian's right about this, I hate that I have to be 100% on Ian's side here, but I think, look, I'm not saying I'm a Rhodes Scholar. I'm not a Rhodes Scholar. I don't have an advanced degree, but I read some books. I know some things, okay? And if there were no financial regulation, if I were left to invest my own devices, I would be broke and destitute and naked in the street.
And we might be a better place
for
for
that.
it. That's my argument.
Don't fib. You're far too creative. I've watched your show. You're a funny guy. You would
Stop it. Come on, get at it.
There's a sliding scale of how much protection do we give? How much does the government step in to intervene in people's lives because they're not smart enough? Bloomberg had that speech he gave on stage where he said we should tax the poor because they don't know what they need, so we're going to take their money from them and buy what they actually need.
Look, the actual failure in markets is an integral part of markets. The big part of the problem that we see with government bailouts is there's no failure. I mean, we have a phrase for it, too big to fail with banks and stuff.
Yeah.
Failure is important. It's an important piece of information that you get from markets, and so to take away that failure by whatever means, whether it be government fiat or whatever, that's a terrible
And
idea.
responsibility and accountability. I mean, the
Failure teaches people that they did something wrong.
The only difference between the mafia and the government is that the mafia actually turns a profit. The U.S. government doesn't turn a profit, and they're in the business of screwing you over, taking away your freedom, robbing you of your wealth, and robbing you of any potential free liberty that you are entitled to by God-given rights. And I want those God-given rights, and I don't want the government telling me what I can and cannot do.
Let me ask you this then. With there we go. With CBDC fears or tokenized dollars, do we think prices are coming down next year?
Yeah.
Are they gonna? There's a fear that Luke mentioned that the Fed's gonna screw with Donald Trump. They can change interest rates. It's going to affect the economy for regular people.
I think prices go up, and I think prices go up in part because if Trump follows through on the tariffs, they have to go up a little bit in certain sectors. I'm for it, by the way. I think it's actually a mature, responsible, good, effective strategy to threaten the tariffs and everything. But Like my wife was asking this, so Mac, now that Trump got elected, are the prices finally coming down again? It's like 30%, 3.5 years, whatever. I was like, the prices never come down. It just stops being quite as bad. But I don't know. I'm not quite as hopeful.
Butter came down. You know, it was $7,
Yeah.
and it was it shockingly was. And then I went to the grocery store and it went down to $6.
We have the eggs leveled out a little bit. Yeah.
Not that I'm an economist, but it's my sense that the prices will stay around where they are and wages will kind of rise to meet them. That's the kind of the way that inflation has been dealt with, historically. The wages rise to meet to kind of equalize. And that's the problem with inflation as a leader and wages are a laggard.
What I was trying to get to earlier was, if we're seeing these big businesses like Bud Light back way off, they lost so much, a third of their market share, whatever it was, a Target did, Disney lost $1 billion. Now Disney's announcing that they're removing a transgender storyline from their latest series. All of these. What are they going to do next? I mean, is it fine to say that we could just sit here and lament the latest meme token because we've won so handily that there's nothing left to fear?
Well, now we got to make some.
I disagree.
Now we make the news.
What are they going to do?
I disagree. I think there's going to be a lot of foul play. I think there's going to be a lot of dirty tricks. We have to understand power isn't usually relinquished kind of freely. There has always been a struggle between the intel agencies and Donald Trump. We have these intel agencies right now creating bioweapons. They're overthrowing the government of Syria. They're launching drones. They're bringing us closer to World War III. This is something to absolutely consider and to talk about right now more than ever, as this is something that I think is going to try to sabotage Donald Trump, his administration, and his goals of what he wants to do. So that's why I'm extremely cautious with what everything's going on. And I'm very optimistic. I'm very white-pilled. But at the end of the day, we have to understand there still is a big force out there that doesn't want to relinquish its control over the American people. How do we take it back? We take it back with personal responsibility. We take it back by taking our own health into our own hands and understanding that the power lies within the individuals, not within the government. So maybe not putting all of your hope in the government and putting your hope in your fellow man is the right solution, is the cultural revolution that they can't stop, that is really going to echo through America with Donald Trump as the larger messenger of this, because there's going to be a lot of problems for him. Let's admit it, let's be honest with ourselves. I think this drone stuff, this whole Luigi manifesto thing, I think all of this is crescendoing towards larger problems that all of us are going to have to deal with soon.
I think one of the things that's got me worried is, just the other day, someone tried to murder Nick Fuentes. And I know a lot of people have strong feelings about the guy. I'm not going to sit up here and use this as an opportunity to talk about why we agree or disagree or we don't like that guy. No. Someone went to his house with the clear intention to murder him because he's a person online with opinions they didn't like. This is being referred to by a lot of people. We didn't coin this the Mangione effect. This guy shows up allegedly in New York City, murders a guy in cold blood, shoots him in the back. And then you've got a large swath of young people, predominantly left-leaning, cheering this on, celebrating it, calling it for more. You had Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. I should say Elizabeth Warren largely said, yes, murder is wrong, but you can only push people so far, as if to imply this healthcare CEO did something that warranted people wanting to murder him. The system has not changed. Premiums have not changed. All that happened is their security went up, costs are going to go up, they're hiding who these people are. We can't live in a society that functions this way. But we have a large political faction that openly celebrates these things. So if we see what's happening with, let's get a little bit darker. Red Yard of Lynch of What If Alt Hist had a prediction that 1,000 people will die by April domestically over political issues. I can't believe it, right? Michael's eyes just went wide. And he's got a big YouTube channel and he's made a bunch of videos talking about why he thinks it's going to happen. And I personally don't believe it. But then you see what's going on with Mangione and the celebration of it. And you see the attempt on Nick Fuentes' life. And perhaps it's not going to be 1,000. But my concern right now is Donald Trump is not yet in office. There's viral videos already of people on TikTok. There's a woman, she's on TikTok, this video went viral and she said, I don't care if I get banned anymore because they're going to ban TikTok. And then she vowed Trump will not make it to office. You have people saying, you have one viral video where a guy's saying we're going to send 11 million people to DC. My question then is there a fear of escalating violence or anything like this, or is the Mangione effect, is this nothing?
you always got to keep it in your mind that's a possibility, but not be afraid of it, because your antidote is to create positive energy. It's to create awesome shit that just blows people's minds and refocuses their attention on something creative.
Isn't that how we won this election? We were the party that was telling people they could be richer, they could have more, and the Democrats were telling folks that they had to live with less. And so there's a unifying feature to that. And when we go out and build our coalition for the future, I think it's really important, that the positivity be what we lead.
Yeah, I think Matt, where you're aiming, the idea that we have to be aiming at something positive is absolutely true. But I also regularly say that we have a serious problem with the leftists in the country, that the notion that success is bad or people that are rich are the reason why there are poor people. These narratives are poison to a society. And the more we can do to push back against them, the better off all of the country is going to be. The more that we do, and like I said, the positive narrative that you're talking about is a great way to push back against them. It's not the rich versus the poor. It's all a rising tide lifts all ships.
No, this is an insight of classical political philosophy. Is that avarice, envy is really the evil, the beginning of the evil in the cities. And so you see that. That's what this killing was, and the people cheering it on. It's pure envy. It's people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders cheering it on, albeit with caveats. And these are people who've made their political ideology on envy. However, there is this weird part that no one's talking about, which is they did Obamacare already. Remember they did Obamacare in 2009? They said, this is going to fix health insurance, it's going to bring costs down and everything. They did, that is the law. And then Trump was going to repeal it, and McCain said no, and it remained the law. We were going to shoot it down at the Supreme Court, John Roberts squished. So that is the law. The terrible health insurance system that Luigi Mangione murdered this poor man for in cold blood is allegedly, according to all the lawyers tell me allegedly, that is the liberal Obamacare healthcare system. How come no one's pointing that out?
Yeah, this Luigi case I think is extremely suspicious. There's a lot of lore behind it. It's very Joker-esque, and I really do think the manifesto was leaked for a reason. I really do think he's being lionized for a very specific reason. I think there's a larger gaslighting effect on social media that I observed that is trying to make this guy out to be a hero. He murdered someone in cold blood, but for me, my conspiracy mind automatically kind of goes to the point that the left and right divide is kind of over. The left lost. There's no more woke. All these corporations are moving away from this DEI narrative. What better way to subvert Donald Trump's agenda, especially his economic agenda, than to not make it left and right, but to make it top versus the bottom versus the top. And I think this is the landscape that's being shaped right now by the intel agencies through social media, through this particular case, whatever involvement they had particularly in it, in order to set the next kind of battle for Donald Trump, who is this billionaire, who is this businessman, who is talking about getting rid of regulations and taxes, which is extremely important. But now that agenda culturally will be stopped by all these Luigi fans that are normalizing political violence.
Michael Knowles, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. We had you come in and fill in. It's an honor to have you.
I want to thank you for having me. The only person who could get me to delay my own cigar event is you, Tim. So thank you for having me. Thank you.
Who's going to be joining us tonight?
Mr. Kirk.
There he is. This guy.
But I think you're right. Charlie, so what we're talking about is Luigi. You might have maybe heard us talking backstage a little bit. And the top versus the bottom. It goes from left to right to now it's top versus bottom. I think Marvel movies have been seeding this, maybe subconsciously, with the vigilante justice arc.
Well, the Joker is a perfect representation.
It's so funny. I was just on the PBD podcast and he said the exact same thing. Isn't that crazy? Like I was just like simultaneously. So,
oh wow,
I think that's very insightful. Literally the exact same.
And a lot of like super villain.
I was saying this
reality
from day one because of the weird social media response to all of this. A lot of anonymous accounts, a lot of accounts that had no following were saying, this guy's a hero, this guy's great, this guy's amazing. And I'm like, wait, hold on, this is weird.
Do you think it's foreign?
I think there's something involved here that could be setting the ground
I
for
missed the
something
whole
bigger.
back and forth.
I think this is a psyop, personally myself.
Do you think by the intel agencies?
Yes.
And you believe that the goal of that PSYOP is to get people to resolve more of their grievances
Through violence. Yes.
That's the end state.
Yes, through a fake anarchistic Joker-like kind of scenario that unfolds under Trump's presidency that goes after businessmen, business leaders, and CEOs.
Can I just point out that
Super smart. I think you're right.
when Joker came out, the corporate press said it was an incel fantasy for white supremacists and blah, blah, blah. And now, with Luigi Mangione, they're all celebrating this narrative, which is comparable. They're not aware of themselves.
Who are you talking about?
When the Joker movie comes out, the corporate press across the board was saying that this movie is for incels and white supremacists and weak-willed young men cheering on Joker shooting the TV show host. Someone who he says you get what you effing deserve. That's what happens. His joke. What happens when you take someone who's mentally ill in the city and you throw them out or whatever? Now you have this narrative of Luigi Mangione, a troubled young guy who was injured and the system was bad to him, so he takes it upon himself. They cheer for that.
This corporate press? Are you sensing that from the corporate press?
So I'm saying that the entertainment media was calling Joker far right, but now it's literally the far left celebrating a comparable scenario.
But the difference is we want an election.
That's it.
We
Right?
want an election, and so there's more of a willingness to accept alternate forms of resolving who holds power. And if it's who holds the majority of the country has power, that's clearly us. But if it's might makes right, and they have some of these exclusive tools that Luke's been talking about,
I
that's
think
another way.
I think we can't play this game. We can't do this. We're gonna flip flop. I think we should stick to our principles. We'll agree with the Democrats. We need to end the filibuster and pack the Supreme Court. So it's what they wanted to do, and I think we'll just keep on keeping.
You think? I mean, a bigger Supreme Court might not be a bad idea.
Right now, with Donald Trump as president, you're correct. Yes.
Like, well, we got 11 people in the Supreme Court.
Nine.
Does parents have any kids?
Come on. Like the amount of decision, the power that those 9 people wield, and then get it for life is like, I think that's a broken process.
I don't think they're going to try to do the vigilante justice there, and they already did. Remember, they tried to kill Brett Kavanaugh. Just by the grace of God, there was a U.S. Marshal there that actually stopped the guy. He had all the configurations, the rope, the weaponry, and right in his driveway.
It's so easy to threaten 1/9 of the Supreme Court, like for someone in their driveway, and then that psychological damage that does to the human that has to make these grandiose decisions for 360 million people is like, that's kind of a psychological vulnerability I'd rather not have. I'm not saying we need an AI as our Supreme Court, but maybe we could have like 7 AIs all like giving us advice, and then the legislature would be like, I will listen to the AIs, but still you have humans making the decisions.
There's a little devil on each shoulder.
But relying on humans, you do need to upgrade to machines. That's the
Technocratic agenda, like with the singularity. This is what they're building up to
You used to
here.
have a dude like dragging your sled. Now you have an automotive vehicle doing the work for you.
Hey, look, that's the answer on the immigration front. It's only the automation that's going to get you to your immigration goals. Because once we're able to automate a lot of the things that illegal immigrants are doing in this country, you're not going to have the corporate capture of lawmakers trying to get more people across the border illegally. So I'll defend you.
Oh, thanks, dude. So 29 Supreme Court justices. Is that enough to diffuse the danger of
I was
losing one
joking.
legislature?
Ian. I was joking.
As soon as you start adding people or opening the idea up to adding people, then the Democrats come in and they just add more, and then the Republicans add more, and you end up with 165. And then
Right, we got to beat them to it.
How about less congressmen instead of more Supreme Court justices? They like it.
How about no government? No government.
The problem is we lost the one we liked.
Because the thing about the problem of Congress is you got to represent 700,000 people, and like, dude, you represent you. Like, you can try and represent me, but like, I can only really do that effectively. So it's very ineffective in that sense.
you're getting real close to just pure democracy, and that is not a good solution.
I've had a thought about a representative republic or like a direct republic.
I mean, I've heard of that.
Yeah, where like 700,000 people will vote on something yes or no, it goes to a smart contract that then sends the yes or the no vote to the system. And then we don't have the human
Charlie,
there.
help us.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea.
Thank you. What do you think? Like you said, the security vulnerability of like a guy getting threatened and then making a poor decision as a result. You didn't go that far. I'm just kind of insinuating that. Like, how do you think we could get around that kind of vulnerability with our courts, or our Supreme Court particularly?
Oh, I mean, I think you have to have U.S. Secret Service protection and the equivalent of for all 9 Supreme Court justices. And I think it's insane. We protect our banks and our sports stadiums, events like this, with armed guards all the time. I think every Supreme Court justice needs U.S. Marshals or whatever that do reconnaissance work, that work with the Secret Service, and most of them do a great job. Matt, you think that's reasonable, right? I mean,
Yeah, I think
we spend money on the stupidest stuff that's like $10 million a year to make sure these 9 justices are safe. Not hard, actually.
But can you just imagine how much security would have to go to Broadway for Ketanji Brown Jackson's next performance? I hate to burden
I was inspired.
You were.
Absolutely inspired.
What part of queer Broadway is your favorite?
I didn't say that. I said I was
That was the
inspired.
show.
I said I was inspired to smack myself in the face with a shoe.
There's going to be a little of that later in the show, I understand.
There is! Did you guys notice the shoes that I'm
That's
wearing?
what we call it
Tim's
shoes.
shoes. You get a good shot of Tim's shoes yet? Show those bad boys off.
Donald Trump issued fight, golden Donald Trump shoes. And in fact, I have 2. Believe it or not, they come in pairs. And we're going to, so this one's signed by Jack Posobiec. This one is signed by Benny Johnson and Michael Knowles. I'm taking them off already because you guys, we're gonna have them signed, and then once we're done with the show, we'll throw them at you guys. I don't know if we're talking about shoes now, then I'm not wearing any.
I'm just glad you wore socks.
Throwing shoes is a serious Arab insult.
So remember when they threw that shoe at George Bush? And he dodged time in a row?
That was the most impressive thing I ever saw from George W. Bush.
I have that side sign that one.
Thanks, man.
So Ian, I had an
What are we talking about?
We'll convene this meeting.
Give me that marker.
Ian, I'm in one of my final weeks in Congress, and they bring us out on the Armed Services Committee to Silicon Valley. They said, we're going to bring in the most serious defense contractors doing the most high-end stuff that's going to make sure we win all the wars of the future. Take us in this room, take all our cell phones away. So, okay, this is very, very important. What's going to save us completely is graphene. And I thought, graphene.
Yeah, graphene.
No way.
What we do is we collect the ocean's
True.
plastic.
crap.
Yeah, we electrify it with flash joule heating.
Matt, what have you done?
All powder. We put it on our roads, so we'll strengthen our roads by I don't know how many years we'll get out of these roads now. And it gives a hydrogen byproduct, which you can capture and use as fuel. So for every $4.50 of graphene we create, we get a kilogram of hydrogen.
Okay, but real quick, did that seriously happen?
yes,
What were they actually proposing?
they were proposing making a good amount of our military material out of graphene and then using it as a way to ensure greater battery capability.
Let's put the pedal to the metal on this. Batteries, walls. We're gonna have touchscreen wallpaper.
I'm surrounded by all these generals and colonels and people. I was like, you guys have got to meet Ian Cross.
I'll put them in touch. It's Rice University.
I just want to say to everybody who's a consistent viewer of Timcast IRL, I just want you to imagine what it's going to be like in 15 years when Ian was completely right about everything. I couldn't believe you just said that. But graphene is pretty cool.
Oh man, the country that steps on this, because the process of flash joule heating, like carbon, and then they electrocute it and turn it into graphene, is very easy to do. So every country on Earth will start doing it at some point, and then they'll start converting their hydrogen fuel systems at some point. We got to get there first. We got to be the one that distributes the graphene first.
So let's broaden that though. You are 100% correct. The U.S. needs to be an innovator in new materials and energy innovation, etc. We are currently competing on the global stage. We are facing down the barrel of very serious wars in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Are we, with this new incoming administration, going to be leaders of industry and innovation?
We lost our last major war against a bunch of goat herders. Okay? We are not in good shape in the military right now. That is no criticism of the brave patriots who are willing to step forward and be the best among us and serve, and their family members who support them. But we do not have what we need because of corporate greed. These defense contractors, they go out and buy up all the innovators, they shut down anything that could result in a competing contract. And the generals, in a good number of these cases in the Pentagon, they are more worried about their board seat on Raytheon's board or on Lockheed Martin's board. They're more worried about getting a contract and they get out than making sure that we have stuff that can work. The F-35 costs $100 million a copy. You know what percentage of them can fly right now and fully operationally capable? 29%. If something costs $100 million, it should definitely work more than 29% of the time. But we tolerate that because they've got the lobbyists and they've got capture over a lot of the folks in Congress. And those were some of the folks who didn't want to see me as the Attorney General, because I would have called them out, I would have busted them up, and I would have liberated the innovators of this country to make sure that America always holds the high ground.
People that are running the military industrial complex are more concerned with planned obsolescence to make extra money.
Yes.
Okay, we got to build the best graphing weapons, dude. I'm not big, like Einstein was like, oh, I unleashed the atomic bomb. And Oppenheimer particularly was like, what have I, great technology breeds great weaponry, but we could build banging jets, super lightweight drones.
This is what Elon told me about the jets and the drones. He says, Matt, we must understand how to get drone operators laid. Because the mentality in the Air Force is you've got to be a fighter pilot to achieve all of the machismo and be super impressive. And then if we vaulted the 280-pound drone operator living in his mother's basement to the same level, I don't know the solution on that, but if you come up with
We could get them in VR on treadmills.
It starts
just inject the graphene right into their
I have a crazy idea. How about we just don't invest all the money in murder and death, and we actually allow America to be free and not be burdened by the military-industrial complex? Can we just do that for a second and imagine a world where maybe free trade and enterprise leads the way instead of American foreign policy that has been hijacked by the neocons?
Well, that's a great argument. How's it going for you? Because from my vantage point, we seem to be involved. Joe Biden sleptwalked us into multiple wars that were not in the interest of.
It wasn't Joe Biden, it was the intel agencies that got us into these wars that were predominantly used to human traffic and drug traffic. So if you look at the aspect of the intel agencies getting their way, they did get their way.
I'm pretty sure we all agree we don't want to be involved in foreign incursions and interventions. I don't see why we would not also at the same time want to have strong defensive capabilities with new weapons and a strong military.
That's the answer. The answer is to have the most badass military that the world has ever known, and then to use it appropriately and sparingly, and to have it as a functioning deterrent. But that doesn't produce a sufficient amount of the money laundering and other ails that Luke pointed out. And so you have that tension that typically resolves in some patriotic call to relive World War II politics in the modern era, where we are more interconnected and more, I think, capable of creating peace if we will allow it to blossom and emerge.
So Luke, how would you feel if we were not involved in any foreign wars? We said, no, we're not sending our U.S. troops to some faraway land for some intervention nation or whatever, but we did invest in, train, and develop, and then we had our troops on the southern border.
It seems reasonable, especially with the invasion
We get the anarchists to agree, and we can make some movement on this one.
There's nothing wrong with strong defense, but the problem is it's not defense; it's offense. The problem is it's human trafficking, it's drug trafficking.
Right. I understand what you're saying about human trafficking and drug trafficking. I think that's something that we all condemn and something that we all want to avoid. But the tools to defend and to use for offense are the same generally. So the keeping the military-industrial complex, keeping the reins on them is necessary, but making weapons that make the United States stronger are the weapons that make the United States safer as well. Having a weak military having a weak United States military is not good for peace.
But that's not what I'm arguing for. We already have the strongest military in the world, overall.
One of the issues, though, is with the fog of war. If you don't know what's going on in their territory, they might be building up an armada to sneak attack you. So
that's
you need
intel
to,
agencies that you're talking about.
So they put military bases in other countries so they can't sneak up on us. We learned our lesson in World War II.
No, go ahead.
So the idea is, do we descale these military bases? Do we just have a spy satellite system where you can see underground through everybody's buildings?
Think about all the lobbyists that have contracts tethered to every foreign military installation, and the effort that they put to keep, selling the toilet paper, to keep the moving costs, everything you can imagine. There's a special interest associated with it. A lot of those have become vertically integrated, and so the economic incentives are to spread our troops and our capabilities as thin as possible.
So Luke says we have the strongest military in the world. Matt says we just lost to a bunch of goat herders. What's that?
We do not have the strongest military in the world, sadly. I wish we did.
Are the goat herders stronger?
They just beat us. Yeah. I mean, look, it depends. Obviously, it depends on the military campaign, and I'm not suggesting that tomorrow China could invade the United States. But if we continue on the trajectory we're on, and China continues on the trajectory they're on, with AI, with their next generation of fighter aircraft, with all that they're able to do in space and offensive and defensive cyber, China will be a more capable enterprise than the United States military. And I take no joy in saying that. And the answer is more competition. Right? Again, take the F-35 for example. Only Lockheed Martin can build it, and then only Lockheed Martin can service it. And there's no opportunity for other people to come in and say, well, hey, we've actually got a software upgrade package that will get the planes in the air, and that will improve the radar system. But we purposefully use the law to restrain what has always made us the envy of the world. Since the time of the Revolutionary War, military technology, the musket, right, delivered victory. It was when we had the revolving munitions. And now we are getting away from that so that the next general can get their 5th vacation.
But the objective was never to win these wars. It was to have perpetual war. It was to continue these wars. That's what we saw in Afghanistan. And as soon as that ended, we of course have Ukraine. As soon as Ukraine ends, there's going to be something else. Whether it's Romania, Georgia, Syria, whatever it is, there's always going to be something because of what President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned during his farewell address about the takeover of the military-industrial complex. That's what I'm trying to get to the root of, that I think we really need to address if we're going to have a competent military that's not going to take advantage of us.
Charlie, I'm sorry, I don't think Lockheed's going to be your sponsor for next year's turning point.
That is okay. It's sort of like this, we got a brain, Charlie, I'd love just to listen to you talk for 20 minutes actually. Do you have any burning ideas right now?
Whatever, I'm enjoying
Okay,
it.
I'm gonna go with this. Okay. It's like a brain worm that we need to extract from the military. This industrial complex is where it went wrong. Like when we were liberating, in the Spanish-American War, when we liberated Cuba, that's cool. When we stopped the Barbary pirates, that's cool. You want to protect and prevent horror. So I'm thinking we do like a festival where we just get a bunch of drones to simulate attacks on like cities or whatever, or wherever at this festival. And people can come bring their anti-drone weaponry technology and just take turns blasting the drones out of the sky. But the problem is if we do it publicly, then the world will see the technology, and that might be a problem. So how do you open source a secretive weapons campaign?
In 10 years, there's going to be a member of Congress that says, I was sitting down at a defense meeting and they explained the drone festival that they're going to be working on.
No, but it's interesting, like the reason that Native Americans often wouldn't suffer like grave death when they would fight one another before the Europeans got here is because they both go down to both sides would go down to the river. One tribe sends up their 2 or 3 toughest guys. The other tribe sends up their 2 or 3 toughest guys. Maybe you get some broken bones. Maybe a person dies, but you don't have this mass slaughter, right? And so, if the way warfare is going to change, it's going to be our robots against their robots. Maybe instead of having the wars to death, we just run the simulations and be like, oh hey, Russia, we ran the simulation of your drones against country X's drones, and their robots won, so you don't get the territory.
Hey, that's like the Olympics, man. More complex. It's like playing online video games with people. Like, hey, I bested you. I don't need to kill you now. It comes down to like, if I don't have enough food, then I don't care what the simulation says. I'll get desperate. So you do want to make sure resources are distributed properly. But you can do that with drones too. We could set up automated drone programs where we're constantly delivering food to isolated areas, and they're coming back. We could set up drone programs that are digging the sand out of the Sahara and putting it back in the ocean.
Is that what they're doing in New Jersey?
So I wonder, I think they might be setting up a system where they can now regulate drones. I'm concerned that it's like they want to scare us and be like, we gotta make sure I don't know. Other than that, maybe they're training and they're testing some defensive drone technology.
Yeah, what do you guys think is, Charlie, what do you think's going on?
no strong opinions on it.
No, what's going on?
Try what you can.
What do you think?
Inside.
Secrets. Nobody knows about the drones.
Well, I think one thing is clear. We could speculate what they're doing, but the one obvious truth here is that the U.S. government is deliberately freaking out the American people. They are deliberately lying about it. They told us that it was Iranian motherships. They told us that it was the Chinese. They told us that it was civilians. They told us that it was ours. They're speaking out of both sides of their mouth here, and they're spreading a lot of fear and panic. I really do.
What do you want the drones to be, Luke? If you could ideate whatever the actual thing they're doing, what do you hope they're doing?
Creating a nice display for Christmas where all the drones are going to
So
come.
we're all gonna be
give us
surprised.
a nice big American flag, and all these drones are going to light up, and they're going to light up the night sky, and they're going to, propel the message of liberty and freedom.
A drone light show like a nativity scene.
Yes,
It's going to
exactly.
take over the entire eastern seaboard of the United States.
But let's not kid ourselves. The CIA has specific power that allows them to execute American citizens through drones. I think this is them showing their power. I think this is why Donald Trump said, I'm not going to be vacationing and staying in New Jersey. He canceled his travel plans for a reason, because I think these drones are a message to him that we are the intelligence agencies. We are the ones in control. We could spread fear. We could spread panic. We don't have to say anything to the American people. We're in charge here. There could be a threat. There could be a suitcase. But guess what? You got to keep us in power. You can't fire us unless you let us do our job and let us keep America safe. I think this is something that is worth speculating on, and that's my own personal theory. That is conjecture, but I think it's the more kind of plausible explanation here.
You think there's going to be some kind of false flag before Trump gets in office?
I think that could be a threat used against Trump right now. I think there could be a larger message saying, look, this is the operation we got going. This is how we have everyone ramped up. This is how we have the largest psychological war and the psyop playing out already. The American people are primed for this. What are you going to do, Donald Trump? You're going to keep us in power? You're going to make sure America is safe? Or you're going to let the bad guys win? What are you going to do here? And
He doesn't fear them. He does not fear them. There's no part of Trump who has to feel. If he did, he would not be sending Tulsi Gabbard over to be the director of national intelligence. He is sending somebody over there who is very thorough, very smart. Charlie and I spent a lot of time with Tulsi just throughout this
Yes.
transition.
I'm not saying he's fearing them. I'm saying this could be their desperate attempt to send him a message.
To mislead him. Like, I think his take on Iran is, I don't know exactly what it is, I haven't talked to him about it, but after the attempted assassination on him, and they said, hey, a couple days later they leaked out, like, it was an Iranian ploy. Oh, yeah, really? It seemed like he took it seriously.
Well, real quick, the Butler incident was not related to the Iranian incident.
Those are set. There were multiple teams.
Yeah.
He got briefed on
The
it.
golf course was not the Iranian. There was another one that was.
And how do we confirm there was an Iranian one? And why would he take it serious? I mean, I get you take the threat seriously, but like, does he want to take over Iran? Does he want to remove the Iranian government from power?
He did drop a bomb on Soleimani.
He's done it, yeah.
There's enough reason for Iran to have an issue with Donald Trump. Now, whether or not it actually is a plan from Iran to assassinate Donald Trump, I guess that's probably still up for debate. But
That's what the media. That's what the media was hinting right after the attempted assassination. They were releasing articles saying, "Hey, the Iranians could be involved here. It's the Iranian mothership. It's the Iranians that hacked his campaign. It's the Iranians that hacked also Kash Patel, and conveniently will be handing over all the information during his Senate confirmation hearings to the corporate media. How very convenient that it's always the Iranians here."
I'm about to bounce. I wanted one final question I have for you guys about fascism, because I don't even want to say this out loud. It's a joke. A little bit of fascism might be okay. It's a joke. No. What I mean is a little bit of government corporate collusion might be okay. Maybe collusion. A little bit of government corporate cooperation is encouraged. So I feel like if we're going to utilize our drone transportation network, that we would work with Amazon. Libby Emmons is about to sit in. She's like, Ian, hurry it up. She's picking this conversation too. Libby, I'm coming. Do we use the government to work with Amazon, or do we, as just citizenry, we're like, we want global drone delivery service? Let's go. Do we use the government to subsidize it? I know Elon's talked a lot about getting rid of subsidies.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Reynolds.
Okay.
And I'll let you guys Emmons.
I'll let you guys ruminate on that. I'm gonna bounce. Thank you for having me. I'll be back at the end of the show. See ya.
He certainly is, isn't he?
Welcome, Tim. Phoenix.
This is wonderful. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege. Well, what do you think is what should we be focusing on for the next year? It feels like we won.
Feels like when we did win. Matt and I have been working on some things together. I don't know if we can talk about all of it publicly.
I have no secrets anymore, Charlie. None of us.
We are doing our best to make sure that Trump's cabinet is in its best and tip-top form. At least what Turning Point Action will be doing on the political side, and we've said this and we mean it, we will be launching primaries against any senator. We are measuring twice and cutting once, and we are finding our targets. Bill Cassidy is on the top of the list in Louisiana, who voted to impeach President Trump. And so he is a political dead man walking, metaphorically, of course. Mike Rounds in South Dakota is on the list. either Crapo or Risch in Idaho. I can't remember. Get them both out. Interchangeable.
Crenshaw?
Well, yeah, it's in the House. So we're focused on senators intentionally, but we think the House is going to work itself out. Matt can talk on the House.
Lindsey Graham?
Lindsey's definitely being considered. That is for sure.
Clap right now if you want to see Lindsey Graham project. Clap right now. I got a
There's a couple elements. Number one, I mean, Turning Point, we've had an amazing year. We were heavily involved in the president's election. Matt knows that. So we have a choice. We can kind of become a boring establishment organization and do nothing, or we can continue the movement to make the Republican Party in the image of its voters, which will win us no fans or favor with the DC class, but will actually represent the people. And the biggest impediment is not the House. I think the House actually is far more conservative than people give it credit for. Matt would agree. The problem is the U.S. Senate. The U.S. Senate is the keeper of secrets. It's where most foreign policy decisions are made. It's where the intel agencies go to first. The House is like an afterthought. And the U.S. Senate stands in the way of President Trump's agenda and will not get better until some of these old crows are primaried and removed. And we saw this with the Joni Ernst situation, which I'm not convinced if it's a good idea to primary just because you got to be careful about the general, but she deserves it for sure. Where she was fine about voting for Lloyd Austin for Joe Biden's Department of Defense Secretary, and yet she was giving Pete Hegseth this hard time. Like, no, actually it doesn't work, we're gonna get rid of you. Like, that's the new operating procedure. If you vote for Joe Biden's nominees and you will not enthusiastically vote for Donald Trump's nominees, after we won the popular vote and electoral vote landslide and the greatest American comeback in history, and you, Joni Ernst, like, who do you think you are exactly? She thinks she's better than you, and she doesn't represent the people of Iowa. She got the message, she's behaving right now. For now.
What drives these people is shocking to me. To see them outright and publicly just say we defy the popular mandate.
Well, it's certainly not a care for their voters, and that's where we come in, is that the way that Donald Trump has configured the Republican Party, they now know they can't survive a primary. They can get through a general, there's enough money. And Matt will agree with this. The Republican primary is very treacherous for some of them. And look, we're not here to cause problems for majorities. The way that we're going to do this at Turning Point Action and Turning Point PAC, we will only engage in comfortably red states. That means states where Senate races are won by 15 plus points, okay? We're not going to do this on the margins in states like North Carolina. I got problems with Tom Tillis. That's not wise. It's not smart. We're not here to all of a sudden get someone who's more conservative that can't win a general election. That doesn't do anybody any good, right? However, there are plenty of people that are in these deep red states that don't represent their voters. In fact, some of the most moderate people are from the reddest states in particular. Mike Brown's Crapo, Risch, Jerry Moran, Roger Wicker, Shelley Moore Capito, Lindsey Graham, whatever. And what we have is a very powerful political operation that is maturing. We're not just going to go the traditional Republican way. And what we need is, look, we were very instrumental, I believe, and Matt would agree, in removing Ronna McRomney from RNC chair, which was instrumental in Donald Trump. And Ronna is now a verb. People don't want to be Ronna, and now we need to find another verb. And so, we don't want to Cassidy.
But the opportunity here for the exponential enhancement of our capability is lashing, Elon's resources and interest in saving the country with the army that Charlie and so many have built here at Turning Point. Elon and others see what happened on the ballot chasing and on registering voters and on the way that you were having events in Detroit, Michigan.
Correct.
You'd never even had an event in Detroit, Michigan.
We had 10,000 people there.
Unreal. And they didn't just come for a social event. They left ready to go win that state with specific ways to work together. Once we scale this, that takes power away from the people who are the best friends of a lot of those ne'er-do-well old crows.
One thing that's wild about that is hi, Charlie.
She's the best.
I know, during this last election, it really started to seem like every race was a national race to a certain extent, and I think that was a lot to do with Turning Point Action, just really isolating and focusing on every single race that was key for the federal government.
Well, thank you. And so our hope in this next kind of primary season is not to cause unnecessary problems or shrink majorities, as I say, but you guys deserve better. And these U.S. senators need to be put on notice that at any time the metaphorical political sword of Damocles could fall upon their senatorial campaign and leadership. And if they do not do what the voters have wanted, so for example, stop sending money to Ukraine. Keep on sending money to Ukraine, we're getting rid of you. Sorry, it's just end of story, okay? We know who you are, we know what you did. We're not going to put up with that. It's insane, it's indefensible. And secondly, this confirmation is, by the way, Bobby Kennedy better sail through Kash Patel. Pam Bondi, Pete Hegseth, and of course, Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi's a very interesting one, because I've said for this entire time, and I love Matt's thought on this, I think Tulsi was always going to be the toughest confirmation fight. You remember, I've said that repeatedly, and I think it's heading that way. And this is how you know we are winning. There's this ridiculous story, Reuters or whatever published it. 8 senators are opposing Tulsi Gabbard. Oh really, what are their names? They never will put a name because they know that now a primary threat is a real thing against them. And so we're not there yet, everybody. But this populist nationalist movement is taking over the entire Republican Party, and the last terrain that the regime controls in the Republican Party is the United States Senate. It's the final piece, it's the hardest piece, it's the most expensive piece, and the highest stakes piece. We feel poised and obligated to engage in the highest stakes.
Why is it the most
This is amazing.
expensive piece?
Some of the most amazing stuff I've heard in a long time.
What makes it the most expensive?
Well, Senate races are super expensive. House races you can win with $500,000. But the primaries aren't actually as expensive, and that's where it's kind of this really interesting high ROI. But look, Bernie Moreno, who's great, and he won the U.S. Senate race in Ohio. It was $120 million they had to spend on the Republican side. $120 million. Dave McCormick was like $130 million in Pennsylvania. I mean, these Senate races are super yachts, basically, is what they've become. And so the impact of a singular U.S. senator is far more profound than I think people realize. Far more than the House. I'm not diminishing, Matt's former employer. But if you're able to get a couple, you don't have to do all of them, because then all of a sudden the behavioral pattern will change. People will retire, they'll be replaced. And that's the thing. Once there's an open seat, we can fill it with a good one. I'm not worried about that. The bigger issue is these remnants of a Republican Party that doesn't exist anymore. These are relics. These are antiques. They're like, where are you from? And you think Russia's like this terrible problem? And like Roger Wicker from Mississippi is talking about how we need to spend more money on Ukraine. Like, who are you exactly? And it's like he's been grandfathered in.
And who are you? A vessel
Exactly.
of the lobbyists and special interests who benefit off of forever wars.
100%. And again, if you will change your voting pattern and you will become more populist nationalist, then you can be marked safe from a primary. But we know the Ukraine thing. I'm not going to let go. These ridiculous people have been sending money there while our own border was being invaded by a foreign adversary, the similar drug that comes from our And I think it's outrageous that we allow that to happen the way we did. So the Tulsi Gabbard is interesting. Tom Cotton is leading that charge. I've liked Tom for a long period of time. I think he's going to learn that he is on borrowed time soon with MAGA if he keeps this up. Because Tom is great on immigration. Tom is great on the Insurrection Act. Remember, with crime, he's phenomenal. But if he gets in the way of Tulsi and all this stuff, that's going to be a tough fight for him.
I'm really excited for the next year.
Democrats are actually
Should be exciting,
they're
yeah.
the most vicious to their former members who come our way. When you talk about Bobby and Tulsi, look at what they did to Mike Flynn. Mike Flynn, former Democrat. So when he started to wake up to the excesses of the intelligence community and the threat that they pose, he had to be vanquished in a very specific, unique way. And I think that you're going to see a lot of the ire for Tulsi and Bobby coming from the Democrats. And I am so excited about Bobby Kennedy because it is so nice to actually think about a healthcare policy discussion in Washington that is actually built around making people healthier. Everything else that we have endured has just been about
It's been about making more drugs to give the American people, just to give us more and more drugs to like lull us into a sense of
And to keep us sick.
unconsciousness, essentially.
And this is the key of where the grassroots comes in, everybody, is that we are able to get this cabinet if you guys stay vigilant and stay on top of your senators. And that is why in January we're going to look at the terrain. We have this completely funded. Is that if any of these senators get a little too uppity, we are going to do massive events, not as big as America Fest, but I'm going to bring Matt with me. We're going to do big events in these states of these recalcitrant, troublemaking senators, and they've never experienced it before. So as the confirmation hearings, I'm going to be watching very carefully. I'll be at some of these hearings, and I'm sure you'll be around. And if there's any of these Republican senators that start to get out of line, it's like, oh really? I hear Cedar Rapids is nice in January. I hear Boise is just balmy in February. Nice Senate seat you have there, shame if somebody primaried it, right? And by the way, we're going to go do these major events, and they have never experienced that kind of.
What about the ones who aren't in cycle? Because that's the challenge about the Senate.
It's not. It's harder, and that's the thing. But that's okay because the way the Senate composition map is, you're right, and this is actually a profound point that Matt makes. Is that they're going to get wise to this because we're talking about it publicly, and what they're going to do is force trade. This is called James Lankford trademark, TM.
Okay?
This is very important.
So this is called the James Langford trademark. So James Langford is a gutless wonder from Oklahoma. It's got to be removed, is all. And so James Langford is like the author of this ridiculous bipartisan bill. He didn't want to do it. He was sent as an emissary by Mitch McConnell because he's not up for election until 2028. So what they do, here's the ingredient. You find someone from a red state who is the furthest away, the most amount of time until you have to face the voters, and you dispatch them to go do the ugliest dirty work, so that even if you get blamed, you're betting on the fact that people are going to forget. You put you on cable TV, you run a bunch of TV ads, oh, look how James Langford is in 2028. So what they'll do is they'll horse trade. So people that just got elected in this cycle, in the 2024 cycle in comfortable seats, they're the ones that are going to do the tough bargaining for the Trump cabinet, where people that are in cycle are going to act all tough. That's why Tom Tillis was your Sherpa, right? Tom Tillis was like the best friend for Matt Gaetz during, I was like, and you, what did I say is that? Like, I don't think he, I don't want to, just forsake any of our confidential information, but anyway, I didn't believe it for a second. I don't think Tom Tillis was like a big Matt Gaetz fan, okay? Maybe I'm wrong.
You mean all those love letters you wrote me weren't real?
The point being is that Tom Tillis knows that Donald Trump could remove him in a nanosecond, and so he wanted to make good because he's in cycle in 2026. So for the senators that are not up for 2028 or 2030, they're the ones that you have to watch out for because they're the furthest away from the voters. By the way, this whole system is stupid. We need to get rid of the 17th Amendment and go back and get away from the direct election of senators. The founding fathers never wanted senators to be celebrities. They wanted them to
They should be appointed.
by the state legislature.
Yeah.
It's not what I
Subject to recall.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and that's right. So, for example,
Because that way they really have to pay attention to their constituents.
Then they're an ambassador. Think of it like when
Yes.
the president sends an ambassador to
we recall
another
them.
country, they can pull them back if they're not sending their message.
And that's
These
what the
senators,
states
yeah,
do.
they were
Yeah.
supposed to be ambassadors of the states. And if the legislature said, "Wait a second, you're not representing our interests anymore. We're calling you back and sending someone else."
Because that way they're representing
also-
the state, not just their district or whatever.
People don't know who's representing them at their state level anymore. They don't
Yeah.
pay attention.
So like their state legislatures.
They think voting for a federal level politician is going to clean the street up in their backyard. No, you've got to vote in your states for your state reps and state senators, and they should be appointing the federal senators.
which
That makes a
again,
lot
it's
of
not,
sense.
it's not Charlie Kirk's idea, it's Madison's idea and Hamilton's
Hamilton,
idea. And
yeah.
Jay, they wrote this for a reason because they did not want senators to become pseudo-celebrities who then can kind of go around, run a bunch of, they didn't have TV ads at the time, but kind of put up populist rancor and not have an accountability structure. We have a bad senator, we have to wait till 2028 or 2030 to get rid of them. So
They didn't call it the House of Lords for a reason.
So here's how it will work in practice, and I know this is a long wind-up. Okay, which is this. Let's take someone who was just up the cycle, who won, who's kind of an older crow. Let's just use, for example, Langford, because he's not up until 2028. So let's say that all of a sudden Joni Ernst starts to feel the heat, which she is. She will go to Langford and she will say, I need you to vote against Hegseth, even though I want to, but I can't. So you get me good here, I'll get you good in the future, and that's called vote trading. So then she'll say, I need you to grill him hard, and I'm gonna act as if I'm his best friend. This happens all the time.
I saw the vote trading happen where people,
It's so sick.
where people were willing to, oh Matt, I'll definitely vote for you. Let me help you everywhere I can. And then I see them on TV blasting Pete Hegseth. And then there are people, oh, I'll definitely support Pete. And then they go blast me.
Yes.
And it's just so obvious.
So they're obviously coordinating, and so it's just transparent. So what you have to do, and this is the only way to beat it, you have to condense the universe of people that are willing to trade. So it gets down to like no people eventually. Otherwise, if the body politic is 15 people, they're all going to be up in different years, and they're constantly going to be trading, and you're never actually able to change the composition of the U.S. Senate.
We got a bunch of bad senators, as you pointed out. We've had this problem for a very long time. I feel like most of my life, I have seen exactly what you're describing with no action being taken, no one knowing what to do. And we sit here at the end of this year at this massive and amazing event that you've put on, Charlie. And it's, first of all, I just want to say this is absolutely incredible. Just to be, everything you've been saying about how we're actually going to see action taken against these people who have been selling center, voting traits, etc. It's cathartic. Is there a concern that we see something comparable among the Democratic Party or any political rivals to try and bring in maybe some further left opposition?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say this braggadociously or pridefully, But I don't think a turning point machine exists on the left right.
It does not.
It doesn't. They've been complaining about that.
Exactly.
They've been like writing about that in the New York Times, lamenting the fact that they cannot pull something like this off. They need to get Beyonce out there, and they need to get Megan Thee Stallion out there, and whoever else to parade them around just to
Hey,
get
it's party
just to get enough people to come to the stadium.
And it's fake. Those people didn't want to be there.
No.
And here's Charlie, who's doing it all, sitting here, raw conversation, no scripts, in front of a crowd, explaining exactly what he's going to do and how he's going to do it, and they have nothing.
And we're all stoked to be here. Like everyone's so
Nobody was
thrilled to be
busted.
here.
Having a nice group cry, but who's left in the Democratic Party? Because as I look at the landscape, like, we've got the alpha males, we've got the such a historic degree of the black vote and the Hispanic vote now for Republicans, and the Democratic Party has been reduced to beta males, transsexuals, lesbians, and the ugliest of angry, lonely women. And I say that because the hotties came our way at the end. The hotties were late breaking for the Republicans because they looked at what was going on the left.
It's a
and they didn't want to
mystery
be
why
part
you
of it.
didn't get your confirmation.
No, but I think
How do you really feel about it?
I actually think that soon the trans women will be in charge of the Democratic Party because they are the most masculine force left.
I have more testosterone than the best.
Well, right, yeah. Who do you bet to actually win the fight of the Democratic Party? The trans women or the soy?
But let's
Definitely the trans women.
But this isn't a joke. It is kind of, and it sounds like one, but it's just actually, I think you're correct. Is it that in all seriousness, you are seeing many women in the Democratic side who vote deferring to males who identify as women instead in a lot of circumstances in sports and now in Congress.
Yeah, in Congress. I mean, look at Sarah McBride. You know, people are all about letting Sarah McBride use the bathroom on the Democratic side.
Every member has their own office, bathroom in their own office. There's no reason for that person to use a bathroom anywhere else ever.
There's also, I'm interested in your take on how Nancy Pelosi recently torpedoed AOC's try to be the ranking member on oversight. What was that about? I mean, AOC is like her or don't like her. She's at least a young, forceful person. Pelosi's older than Joe Biden.
She's legitimately talented. You don't get 13 million followers as a member of Congress without having some sort of talent. I'm sorry. I don't know if she's bright. Matt can tell you, but she understands the internet intimately well. She knows how to navigate it.
She is smart. I mean, in terms of
of course. It's not controversial.
Her political ambitions.
But she used to, Matt would know this far better than I would. I only know it as an outsider. She used to be a political rebel and then kind of played the establishment game, and it's become kind of super boring in some ways. But at least under Democrat circles, again, they're so just unbelievably just dry and shallow. I guess she's interesting by their standards. With Matt Gaetz, and we're not boring, okay? So we got a lot. We got a lot of depth at the conservative movement. But it shows this that insurgencies will be quelled by Democrat leadership, and they build their political party how they eventually want to build the country. They build it as Mao would build his government, which is it is pure totalitarianism. It's a Politburo that if you dare to defect, we are going to pull your parking pass. Your wife will be off the board of the Kennedy Center. You're going to get an audit, and your businesses all of a sudden have OSHA and the FTC visit next week. And you think I'm kidding? Like, if you
that sounds for real.
No, that is 100% how they operate.
Well, there's another feature, and it's bipartisan. It's for folks who you think may deviate from the leadership narrative or those directions. You have to dangle something just out of their reach that they're trying to get, but don't quite get. AOC will be the Democrat lead on oversight in short order, or something else. But you have to maintain the fiction that it's the Pelosi echelon of political leadership that actually doles out power.
And additionally, this is what's important. The Republican Party, for all of our problems, is that we have a representative element where we can primary people. We are a true political party where if you want to run, that you can get rid of the ossified old guard, that it's so much more interesting, and honestly what democracy should be is far more alive and well in the Republican Party. The Democrat Party is not. The Democrat Party is incredibly totalitarian. It's very top down. Now the question remains, and I don't know the answer to this, is where did the energy go, and will it ever come back, of that Bernie Sanders rebel, what do they call themselves, Our Revolution? What was the name of the group that drafted AOC? It was a very, very
Justice Democrats.
Yeah, that's right. It was the Justice Democrats. Whatever happened to them? Because they were the ones that actually
got corporate jobs.
Well, actually, tomorrow, I don't know if you know this, Tim. I mean, tomorrow it's supposed to be a discussion. I don't want to debate him. I have no interest in it.
if he does, I'll respond. Cenk is coming here tomorrow. I don't know if you know that. And we're going to discuss this because I actually think he's onto something. And he's been the only one saying it honestly on social media, which is like the Democrat Party has become disgusting and really corporate. And I think he's been really consistent about it. I don't know if you've been following any of his.
Oh yeah,
Annika
sure.
Sparrow-
Yeah, we had him.
Yeah, Annika
Yeah.
Sparrow was like leading the charge with that because she
Yes.
had been a victim of
That whole thing. And that's why I invited Cenk because I think it's going to be interesting. Again, I don't have
There's a debate here with Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks in that you can take a look at some of these prominent personalities, Bill Maher, Jon Stewart, start to sing a different tune once they see what the election ended up being. All of a sudden they realize they're on the wrong side of history, and you start hearing them say, well, maybe we do need to shake things up a little bit. Maybe, and they're chilling out. Or Bill actually going as far as to say, I can't do this anymore. Maybe I should quit or something like that. So the criticism then becomes that Cenk Uygur is only saying this because his viewership is down, and he's been chasing the minority market share, and he's realizing he's on the wrong side of history, something that many leftists fear the most. Do you think he's sincere when he says that he wants to meet in the middle of the populace?
I have no idea. That would be only with intimate amount of time spent with him would I be able to know the motives. What I do think, though, is that he's very smart as a business person. This I totally think, because there's this like untapped Democrat media pool of people that are very just like temperamentally left wing that have no economic populism outlet at all. I mean, so at least as a business person, he's communicating to a growing portion. Again, I'm not just saying he's just in it for the money or not, like whatever. But I think that what he's saying is profoundly interesting. Where if Kamala Harris, for example, which of course she wouldn't because she's a technocrat, she's not very smart, but if Kamala Harris would have come out and she would have said, I'm going to secure the border and give you UBI, I'm going to say there's no more billionaires in America, we're going to be able to say that I'm going to relieve your student loan debt and give you a house, that would have been very hard to run against. In the sense, again, I'm not one to give them ideas, it was obvious in front of us. You have the world's richest man and a billionaire running for the presidency. If the Democrat Party would have ran an anti-billionaire, economic populist, restrictionist immigration message, that would have been lethal. And it would have been very hard. Someone would have believed it from Kamala, but if that would have ever manifested at the top of the Democrat Party this cycle, that is the only way they could have defeated Donald Trump. They could have only defeated populism with populism and done it. The immigration thing, they would have had to go to the right. They would have had to concede it. They had to quell their base. If they would have done that, free stuff populism would have been incredibly hard. And that's what Cenk has been preaching that message to his, credit.
I'm not a big Cenk fan, but let's give him a little bit of credit because he did call out Barack Obama's drone program when everyone on the left was acting like
He's
never
very
heard of it.
consistent on
and
that
he
stuff.
was canned and fired by MSNBC for not going along with the war propaganda. So there is that. Sorry.
I was just going to say that they didn't realize that could even be a strategy because they're all stuck in their own echo chamber. But now, just like Cenk is kind of turning around, so is AOC. She did a whole live stream saying, "Hey, the people that voted for me and the people that voted for Trump, come talk to me. Tell me why. Tell me why."
She didn't understand.
She's running in 2028.
She didn't understand. Yeah, exactly right. But she didn't. I think it's more because they don't venture out past their own ecosystem, so they didn't realize it.
I think this of Cenk Uygur, I don't care about his motivations. I care about the results of what he does. And if he comes here and he says, Charlie, tell me what your goals are, and if we find a middle ground, let's accomplish what we both want to accomplish, let's get it done.
Well, and I'm more interested. I want to hear from him. What is the state of the Democrat Party? Where is it going? What happened to all the grassroots rebel energy? Where is the MAGA equivalent on the left? Because it just isn't there. It just seems so dry.
Like, what is the organizing principle of the Democratic Party
Well, they
today?
don't
It was
know
called
either.
Again, that's why I invited him. I actually think it's going to be one of the more interesting discussions. Like, what do we stand for?
I gotta tell you, Charlie, I know where the former MAGA energy from the left went. It's sitting right here.
That's right.
I was supporting Bernie Sanders in 2015 and 16. Joe Rogan was supporting Bernie Sanders up until a couple of years ago, and the Democratic Party has gone insane. And you see RFK Jr., you see Tulsi Gabbard, you see Elon Musk, you see Donald Trump, you see a bunch of former Democrats leading the Republican charge, and you see over and over again, I love this, they say in the media, where's our version of Joe Rogan, or so help us a Timpool. We all had that populist energy back then, and they went insane. They were abusive, authoritarian. They don't believe in the values of this country. They hate this country. They demand that we hate the country. We don't want to hate the country.
They hate free speech. They hate
They hate it
freedom
all.
of religion. They hate freedom of the press. They hate, illegal search and seizure, being against illegal search and seizure. They hate all of that.
And they're
stuff.
pro-war.
They're pro-war.
They're pro-Kona votes for war.
I mean, they have completely gone against everything that was liberal about being liberal.
Libby and I,
I'm a conservative because I believe in free speech and freedom of religion, freedom of the press.
we were both voting
and my
Democrat.
Bill of Rights. That's right.
Luke is an anarchist, or I don't know how he describes himself.
I was always conservative.
She's always all of these different elements and different factions came together to form this unified group that you were describing earlier, Charlie. The left just has people in a cult. People who don't know what's going on and don't pay attention.
I think that's right. And look, we have to sustain a fair amount of, let's just say, intel operations that are going to be run against our movement. I think that the drone thing's super smart. I think that drone, you made another point about an intel operation. Was it the drone thing? I think that's one of the smartest things ever. I think you're totally right. But like, for example, another operation, I think it's from the intel agencies, is they're trying to draw Elon and Trump apart, try to make it seem as if Elon's the president and all that. That is the new psychological operation, and it's for an audience of one. It's an intentional provocation campaign against Donald Trump to try to get him to try to dismiss him. It's not working, actually. Elon called it out flush. It's actually going to draw them closer together because they're so attuned to these sort of ops. So that's not working. But if we could say, I don't want to get cocky, you don't know what's going to happen. There could be another COVID or a bird flu or lobster flu or World War III or whatever. But
Lobster flu.
it is not inconceivable.
I would be done in the lobster.
Yeah, exactly. It is not inconceivable if we remain humble and work our tail off and improve the party and stay in a grassroots posture and continue our gains with Black, Hispanics, with young people. We keep on owning the internet as we have, and we're willing to embrace differences and different ideas and actually have freedom of speech. It is, and if the Democrat Party continues on their current trajectory with very little, changes, which is going to be hard for them to shed some of the trans stuff. It's very, very embedded. That is in the DNA of the Democrat Party. It is in the fiber. That it's not.
But it's new.
But it's not inconceivable that we can end up having a decade-long reign, and it's not.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how they recover from this.
Look, anyone can adjust. Like, the Democrats were having podcasts in 2021 after January 6th and said, I don't know how they recover from this. You can do it, okay? Time is short. In the new era, digital stuff, people forget stuff. If they get serious, here the biggest threat for us is a Bill Clinton-esque Democrat, like not a Josh Shapiro, but more like Fetterman, who is cool, understands the free speech stuff, populism, and stands up to the Democrat Party on three things. Bill Clinton stood up to the Democrat Party on three things in the 1990s. He said, you guys are wrong on crime, on welfare, and immigration. He ran on all three, and he, basically said that to go take a hike, basically, the Democrat Party, either vote for me or don't. And he stood up to him and ended up winning the presidency. It's going to require whoever becomes the next Democrat nominee to basically tell them on trans, immigration, and maybe war, like, sorry, you're not with me, then don't vote for me because I'm going to go try to change this party. And there is no other path for the Democrat Party. They cannot.
Who is that Democrat that you fear most?
I don't
He
know
just
if-
doesn't have a personality.
I'm less worried about the person, and I'm more worried about the actual form. Because I think that anybody can shapeshift into the form, right? Because, again, I'm not here to give them intelligence. They're smart enough to know this. But whoever has the talent, like, Pete Buttigieg is a little bit worrying in some sense because he's, like, so creepily automated that I think to a certain extent he would be, I don't want to say difficult, but different than Kamala. But Buttigieg is going to try some of this stuff, and he has the biography, but less than the person that we shouldn't get too high on our own supply, because if the Democrats really want power back, if we fulfill our mandate and we start doing stuff, they're going to get Jesus very quickly, metaphorically. Do you know what I'm saying, Tim? Like, they're going to be like, okay, we have to wise up. And by the way, let's just be clear, like, we as Republicans, we are very, very pro-life, but we also read the room on abortion this last year, right? And we adjusted, and we adapted. They thought they had us dead to rights on Roe versus Wade. There's no way they can come back from this. The 2022 was the Roe-vember or whatever. And no, we read the room. We had, okay, the country's not as pro-life as we are. We have to be incrementalists now. And we adjusted and we adapted. So to answer your question, Tim, I think it's a wrong premise. How do they come back? Well, they come back by doing what political operatives do, which is adjust to the circumstance in front of them. We shouldn't be too prideful to say they won't do that.
On the abortion issue, it was actually fairly easy for someone like me. They went to the extreme end in the other direction. There was no compromise on that side, and there was compromise with conservatives on the issue. I look at these Democrats outright either denying that they want abortion at the point of birth,
Sure,
or being openly for it and telling me that saying maybe there should be restrictions. In the first, after the first few weeks, something like this, they said that's a hard pro-life far-right position.
And the celebrating of it was what I think
and the
turned a lot of
taxpayer
people on.
funding of it.
Yeah.
But do you remember, you used to be able to be a pro-life Democrat. That was
Yes.
a thing. You could be a Catholic,
Yeah, that's right.
pro-labor, pro-life Democrat.
There's
But
one.
That's not allowed anymore because the Democratic Party, and we were talking about this earlier in terms of, how they behave in Congress. The one thing that they are super good at is being unified in their message, whatever new fashionable garbage message it is. And they're really good at being unified, in their votes. So that's something that
I have to dash. I got another event I actually have to go to. There's a Shabbat dinner with some of our Jewish friends they're doing right now. I promise I'll go speak at it. Guys, tomorrow we have amazing speakers. The Cenk thing I think is in tomorrow afternoon. That will be definitely great. You haven't spoke yet, right?
Sunday.
Oh, Sunday, that's right. I can't remember who else is tomorrow, but it's gonna be great. So, and please guys, the one thing I'll say, support our sponsors. They help make this event possible. So walk through the exhibit hall, get to know them, sign up, buy some stuff, support the people in the exhibit hall, please. They're the ones that paid to be here, that made it so that we didn't have to charge you an over-exorbitant. They literally subsidize your tickets for being here. So go there, support them, walk to the exhibit hall, give them some love. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Charles. Listening to what Charlie was saying and primarying these people is a dream come true, because I have talked about how I despise these people who run for office and play dirty backroom deals knowing that we can't vote them out for 6 years, and they're hoping that we forget everything they did 6 years later. So let's get it.
Do you think our memory gets shorter, not longer? Unfortunately,
Right.
And that's why creating the infrastructure around the movement, like Charlie suggested, is the key to success. What I encountered was that there was a bastion of senators who felt as though they owed nothing to Donald Trump, that they owed really very little to their voters, and were gonna hold their position regardless.
This is interesting. Let me ask you, let's say that Donald Trump doesn't emerge in 2050, never comes down the escalator. Would Hillary Clinton have won?
Yes.
Where would we be today if there just was no Donald Trump? He retired, got a boat, and went off to the Mediterranean to drink martinis.
We'd be like shaking the Bush family tree for another one to fall out.
Yeah, that would be a terrifying place to be. I think we'd have more wars than we had before. We'd still be in Afghanistan probably. There'd be more than 2,000 troops in Syria. There'd be more going on. Maybe we'd have boots on the ground in Ukraine. We'd have more illegal immigrants in the country than we do right now. We would have had more coming in. I think that it would have been a pretty bad situation. And I think the Democrats also should look back at that time period, because one thing that they did was they launched this resistance, right? And the idea of the resistance was not that they were going to consider any specific policy. They weren't going to look at Trump and say, oh, he's doing this, I kind of like that, he's doing that, I don't really like that too much. Instead, they just did a blanket opposition to the presidency. They didn't have any respect for the office. They had no respect for the man, and they had no consideration for the will of the American voters. And this is, I think, what's going on now with like Cenk and Morning Joe and all of these people, Bill Maher, Jon Stewart, who are sort of like, well, maybe we should look at it a little differently, because they spent this whole time just being blatantly oppositional without any substance behind that oppositionalness at all.
They only care that they're on the wrong side of history.
Joe Scarborough's been around so many times, it's like a revolution. I mean, Joe Scarborough and I both represented the same district in conservative North Florida. And then when MSNBC wrote the $10 million check, he went the other way. And now the advertisers are starting to see the diminished viewership with that myopic view. And he's coming back home, maybe.
Here he is.
Let me ask you, man, like how does someone like you actually end up being in Congress, where you're not controlled by the lobbyists or these big corporations, you're not pulling these backroom deals like so many others? Where did you come from?
I was a country lawyer in North Florida. I got elected to the state legislature. I did a good job there. My congressman of 15 years, who was a mild-mannered, good Southern gentleman, vacated the post, and I sought the post. And by the way, at the beginning, I was just like the rest of them. I showed up there in Washington, and I said, how do you win this game? And it's, okay, well, it's this lobbyist who's helping you now, but you can parlay that into this PAC, and then this special interest group. And then you go from this dinner party to a better dinner party that can get you more money. And then a subcommittee chairmanship can do everything they want. If you give your vote card to the leadership and your calendar to the lobby corps, in 4 years, they'll call you Mr. Chairman and you'll get bigger stuff. And there was one night I woke up, sleeping in my own office as a man in my late 30s. I just said, I don't even want to win this game anymore. I actually would rather not go spend time with those people and do these things. And it was a moment of zen where I determined that I would win or lose based on what the regular people of this country wanted. And if they wanted to replace me, fine. But I wasn't taking the money anymore. And I was the only Republican in Congress who took no lobbyist money and no PAC money after that commitment. And now there are 0 Republicans in Congress who refuse all lobbyist and PAC money. And we ought to encourage more to follow that path.
You know, we were at the RNC this year, and I saw something that was incredible because I covered a lot of different RNCs, but we didn't see the Cheneys, we didn't see the Bushes, we didn't see the old neoconservative John Bolton bloodthirsty warmongers like we used to see there, and we saw a new kind of evolved Republican political party where individuals like Matt Gaetz represent, I think, the exact opposite of what George W. Bush represented. So I do have to say, it is amazing to see you guys come along the side of all the liberty-minded people, all the conspiracy-minded people, all the people that love capitalism, that love individuality, that right there, love health, love taking care of themselves. That revolution right there is something worth noting because this change allowed us to be where we are here today. So goodbye to the old Republicans. I like you guys a lot, though.
But look, I give you guys credit too. The libertarians, the anarchists, it was very hard at times to maintain a coalition with a group of people who resist coalitions by their very nature.
And self-sabotage each other all the time.
Right, and we saw Trump go to the Libertarian Convention. It was combative, but super interesting. Do you think him going there helped get that?
Absolutely, that was tremendous. He was able to show that he's willing to speak to a room full of opposition and be honest with them. He wasn't pandering, he wasn't lying. He's going to be freeing Ross. I hope he frees Rogers Fair. I hope he frees all the individuals that were
I hope he
wrongly
pardons
imprisoned.
Edward Snowden.
Yes, I hope he pardons, Julian Assange. I hope he pardons all of them. But this is the marker kind of deal, concession that was reasonable because it was honest. It wasn't fake. And truly, I've been working with the Ross Ulbricht case for a very long time. Seeing him walk free in the next few days is going to be something that's going to have a huge ripple effect amongst all the American people that will understand that freedom is capable. The wrongs could be fixed just because we all came together and decided to put our differences aside, which is huge.
The other day, Donald Trump was giving a press conference, and one of the reporters says, "Are you considering a preemptive strike against Iran?" And he's like, "How am I supposed to answer a question like that? You can't ask me that." I loved his answer. Because normally you get some stock garbage answer. This is a guy who is completely willing to just talk like a person. So when we saw him at the Libertarian Convention, reading from a prompter saying like, here's what I want to do, and then he's getting laughed, then he's getting boozed, he goes, fine, then you get 3%, you lose. Everybody busts out laughing.
That was great.
She's just telling you like it is.
And
I respect it.
Yeah, and he was right, of course.
Absolutely.
There was something you said at one point. You said there's nothing wrong with being a congressional backbencher. What did you mean by that?
Well, if you're always trying to obtain the front row seat, the chairmanship, the leadership title, then you become compromised because you're willing to give away a little bit more of yourself to achieve that objective. And these people work themselves into a psychological just mystery where if they advance, they believe in their own virtue so much that any non-virtuous thing you have to do to support your own advancement is justified. And after a while, you're nothing but a valet for the lobbyists and special interests who are destroying the country. And so I joke with my little crew that sat with me that we were making backbenching great again because we didn't owe anyone anything. We were willing to communicate directly to the people, and also we weren't afraid of losing. I was so inspired by Congressman Eli Crane of this fine state when he walked in to the Speaker's office and said, I have faced down the radical Islamic extremists overseas. I don't worry about whether or not I'm going to lose an election. I'm here to do the right thing for the Constitution, for the country. And that courage can be contagious. That is really the hope with Trump coming back, is that all of these husks of humans I served with in the United States Congress will actually grow a spine and stand up and fight for the people who are counting on them to deliver the results that we've all been promised.
I was just going to say, I think that you were kind of exceptional because you have a big personality and things like that. I know members of Congress that I've worked for, they came in and they wanted to do the right thing. They said, I'm coming down here, I'm going to do the right thing. And then, they didn't make the right vote for leadership. And all of a sudden, they're getting no committee assignments and nobody wanted to co-sponsor their bills. And so I think that they got beat down, thinking they couldn't serve their constituents unless they played ball, and then it sucks them in. So, what would your advice be to them to like get out of that if they don't? If they can't be on Fox every night.
Isolate what they can never take away from you. They can never take away your vote. The people gave you that vote. I may go cast one on January 3rd. But the people give you that vote. And so if you hold that as yours, right, that is empowering. What I found is that I own my 5 minutes. When I had one of these dirtbags in front of me from the Biden administration, or even some of the bad ones from the Trump administration, I had 5 minutes to ask whatever questions I wanted, and no one could take that away from me. And I used that as a way to expose a lot of the problems going on. And then you have people that would see those dynamic exchanges and say, I want to do that. I don't want to just get the Association for, Southeast Paper Distributing to give me my little talking point to go read. I want to, no, Matt, how did you trick that person into giving that answer? How did you get them to admit that they should have known where the laptop was and didn't know? And then you start to develop those skills, and there are a lot of great folks that are still there who I hope will continue to proliferate that.
There we go.
Yeah. That's a good message just for general life. Like, just find what they can't take away from you.
Yeah.
And lean into that.
That's what Luke is always preaching about healthcare. He says, you have a say in whether or not you win or lose the biological war that is being waged against your body. And if you sit back and take it, then that's how we get diseased, that's how we get sick, that's how we live diminished lives. But if you take agency over your body's own resilience, I did 25 push-ups after I heard that riff.
Good. Big Pharma doesn't want you to heal yourself. That's why I got a hat. It says,
No, they want us to
make America not fat again, because we are very fat, and we are very overweight, we're very sick, we're very downtrodden, we're very attacked in all elements of our life. And when we realize the larger truth of, hey, my health is actually in my hands, I'm actually participating in the larger destruction of my own personal health, I'm going to stop investing in this, I'm going to stop spending my money on this, everything changes because you're able to see things clearly. I mean, getting rid of the fluoride from the drinking water, which RFK Jr. is promising, could unleash the full potential of the American public to be finally unleashed and have got pineal glands decalcified. That larger potential, that neurotoxin being cut away from the water drinking supply could essentially allow America to be a leader on the world stage when it comes to intelligence, when it comes to health, and when it comes to being the change that you want to see in this world. And that's beautiful, and that's amazing to see.
Well, pharmaceutical companies, their big goal is to make sure that we're all lifelong medical patients. That's why they love the concept of the trans child so much, because they put you on drugs when you're 12 years old, they start cutting up your body at like 14, and then by the time you're like 50, 60 years old, you can't do without the drugs that they are feeding you.
These infiltrated the medical schools too. Like they're the ones that are paying the medical schools. They're the ones that are writing the textbooks, and so even the doctors are now brainwashed by the big pharma.
And that's actually there's a larger narrative here that we're actually discussing, and that's the idea of agency for the individual, which is something that is very common on the right that the left really doesn't have. And the more that we can, add fuel to that fire inside of people that want to take responsibility for themselves, whether it be taking responsibility for your own life as in your health, or taking responsibility for your own income by starting a business. These are things that the right needs to be. We need to remind the right that this is the home of that kind of mentality.
That's a really great, descriptor for the factions, in the culture war. Those who have agency and those who don't. I was thinking, a lot about what you're just saying. They don't want responsibility for their own actions. They want the government to pay for their things. They don't want to have jobs. They want the government to lock everything down when they're scared. But these are also people who don't follow the news, don't pay attention. They just follow whatever line they're told, whatever talking point, because they don't want or have the agency to do it themselves.
And people, it's scary to take responsibility for yourself, right? Like, if you are responsible, then you're the one that's to blame when things go wrong, and that's a hard thing for a lot of people to deal with. But if the founders of this country and the people that make America actually great are the people that will stand up and say, I've got this great idea and I can go do it. And it's that attitude of self-reliance and belief in yourself that makes America stand head and shoulders above every other country in the world.
It's a lot better than being ruled by a death cult.
Yeah. I'm often asked though, well, Matt, the Democrats, they always just do whatever Pelosi says or whatever Schumer says, and the Republicans, it's like herding cats with all you going every direction, and this is why. Because they value the collective, and oftentimes we rejoice in an individual expression of courage or intellect or creativity or beauty, and they don't have the same appreciation for it.
You know, we're in this massive convention center. It's just crazy. All the lights, when I'm seeing the speakers come out, the amazing production value of AmFest, and it's a cultural hub that is tremendous. At the end of every year, I think this is the 4th year they've been doing it. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely incredible. This year, you know what we saw that was really amazing? It was when it was a UFC fight. Luke, you can tell me which fight it was. I don't remember, but you got Trump walking out with Dan Bongino was there. Something like that. UFC, as popular as it is with the entire country, it's on the big screen at every sports book and casino and every wing stop or whatever restaurant. And there is Donald Trump walking out as a part of this massive cultural institution. Seeing stuff like this and then thinking about what is even existing on the other side, I can't help but feel extreme optimism for what's coming next year. With Charlie talking about how we're going to primary all these bad Republicans, the conversation wasn't even about how we stop bad Democrats. It was, now that we've done that, we're going to go for the bad Republicans. We are building the cultural institutions. Bud Light has faltered. Target recoiled over this. Disney is canceling things. We are swinging everything in our direction, and now we're going to clean up everything on this side too.
But we have to hold our feet to the fire because we always say this, and then it comes time to get rid of Obamacare or whatever, and the Republicans do nothing.
Right, but don't you feel hope from what you just saw this last week?
Oh, of course.
Not the election.
PTSD a little bit.
But I've never seen the lobbyists lose before, and we took that 1,500
You mean with
page
that bill? That was wild.
down to nothing, and it just
Still not great, but-
it's not great, but it's better than they've ever done. What they do, they back members up against the Christmas holiday, and they say, if you want to go see your family for Christmas, you're going to vote for what the swamp wants, and they've done it every time until now.
And Lisa, you know better than most people, considering your Congress and stuff, the idea that with the margins that we have now, that we're going to get in there, Republicans are going to be able to get everything they want. You know that because of just the way the numbers work, you have to do some kind of deal to get anything done at all.
I think I was the deal. I think I was the thing you wanted you to get, and maybe we'll get the rest of it. I moved the Overton window so much on cabinet appointees. Maybe we'll just get Tulsi and RFK and all these
They're
folks.
doing that, now that you're gone, who's going to take your spot and take up the charge?
Well, in anything that we do, we always hope we have to inspire people who come behind us to improve upon our work. I look at people like Eli Crane and Anna Paulina Luna and Corey Mills and Andy Biggs. And I am heartened that there are patriots who put the congressional pin on every day and go do that job. We need more. I think there might be some out there. Would someone say Matt for speaker? I would be a great leader.
It is remarkable how, when all that fighting is going down in the House, hopefully again on the 3rd when you're there to cast that vote, that it seems so obvious to all of us here that this is a broken machine and none of these people are operating honestly.
There's a lot of retaliation that goes on. There's a lot of...
Tell me about it.
There's a lot of manipulation, retaliation, things that you don't expect, that you don't see every day. I studied politics going to college, and I had no idea what it was about until I actually interned there. It's a whole nother world.
House of Cards actually is probably the best representation of my former job, in the entertainment space. Would you agree? Was there?
I agree. Yes, I've seen McCarthy do some horrible things to people, and because they didn't vote for him for speaker, and they held this person down and made them a laughing stock and wouldn't let anybody sign on bills. I remember when things were going on with Madison Cawthorn, and he had a great bill, and people were like, "No piece of pride, don't put your name next to it." Same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it was
Congress is high
even
school?
if they were 100% a part of the bill, they loved it, they loved everything in it, just because it had Marjorie's name on it or just because it had Cawthorn's name on it. Nope, they didn't even want to be a co-sponsor.
Half jokingly though,
it's bad.
was there ever anything you saw that got anywhere near pushing a journalist in front of a train? I mean, this again, I don't literally think anybody in Congress was.
Well, Madison Cawthorn did talk about those,
those
private
never invited
parties
to that,
and
by the way.
orgies he was invited to, and then he got kicked out of Congress.
I was never invited to them, so I'm kind of,
Yeah, he got invited to better parties too.
Marjorie
Well, he was
Taylor
proven
Greene
right, which is
Marjorie
crazy.
Taylor Greene had a great bill that I was really sad to see that no one signed on to. And you're
That's
saying
exactly what I'm
that's
talking
why
about.
the bill was to make it so that to extend the statute of limitations to sue for malpractice for child sex changes. And I think that's a really key bill. We're seeing like lawsuits right now against doctors in North Carolina and California, and anyone who was butchered like this at underage really needs to be able to sue those doctors and those hospitals into the ground, like take their houses, you know what I mean? And
Lobbies and
she had
leaders
this great
don't
bill.
make money.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous because
And people
I was
forget that that's the role of
disgusted that no one would sign on to that bill. Like I was disgusted.
But that used to be career ending. If you were deemed a pariah in Washington, you could never get anything
It's getting
done.
better.
But if you folks started to wear it as a badge of honor and say, oh, well, this town doesn't like me, fine. I know the folks I represent, and then you can lay it bare, because it's actually pretty ugly when you lay it bare, and it's empowering to not be beholden to it and not have to draw power from it.
Well, look, when AOC first won her primary, it was against Shkreli, I believe. I was cheerful. Just to see this long-term establishment Democrat, they said it was the fourth highest ranking member, lose everything to a young upstart. I'm like, good, bring it on. They all deserve it. I feel like AOC was a bit of a disappointment, unfortunately. I suppose I got a question.
I think she's disappointed herself.
You think
She
so?
came up to me when we were making the demands on McCarthy for stuff that even the Democrats wanted, the ability to have votes on our amendments, single subject bills, so stuff isn't all jammed together. And she came up to me after the first time
In that famous picture?
Yeah, McCarthy didn't get the vote, and she said, I wish we would have had the courage to do this with Pelosi.
Damn.
So it was
forget, though.
self-reflective.
I wish
And,
so
and,
too.
and I agree with Cenk Uygur because he was calling for that. He said, challenge the speakership and use the power you have with your base. They wouldn't do it. They fell in line.
Well, yeah, and you know what she got for it? She got the Financial Services Committee and the Oversight Committee. And so the most dangerous thing you could do if you're a new member of Congress coming in is to let them know what you want.
Right, interesting, because then they'll hold it against you.
Or give it to you in exchange for a compromise that is so deep that it even has somebody that was rooting for her to prevail in that election utterly discouraged.
We have about 5 minutes left, so I want to give everybody the opportunity to give their final thoughts and just shout outs or whatever. Where you think we're going? Anything you want to say that you didn't get a chance to say? And who wants to go first?
2024, it's the year that the deep state failed. 2024, it's the year that the corporate prostitute media is done and finished. 2024 is the rise of the populist, America First, silent majority that said enough is enough. Liberty and freedom over the woke libtards, which was freaking amazing. This larger coalition that we're building is incredible. Let's keep it moving forward, and let's keep it moving forward, not with government, but with individuals taking direct action by making themselves the best version of themselves. You can do it. Get active, get engaged. The time is now.
I just want to say that I'm really grateful to you guys for coming out, and I'm really grateful to Tim for having me on tonight. And coming to Turning Point, I've been coming for 4 years, and it always just gives me so much hope that there's so many people out here who are passionate, who have so much going on in their lives, who are so excited about the future, about their kids, and about their families. And I'm really, I'm just so impressed with everybody that I've met here this time around and, in the past years. And I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. I hope that if you're celebrating with family or eating the Christmas special at Denny's, you have a great day.
I just want to say, I'm encouraged, like you said, by everybody that's here, but keep up the fight. Let's not slow down. Let's fight even harder and support your members of Congress. Support the firebrand types like Matt Gaetz, because then they don't have to take that nasty speaker money, right? For sure. Forget that they're responsible for going around fundraising. So just keep doing everything you're doing. Keep coming to Turning Point events and fighting for this wonderful country that we all love so much.
Don't forget the fact that, or don't forget how important what happened with that continuing resolution was. That's the first time an omnibus bill has ever been defeated, and it was because of things like X, because of free speech, because of people like you being involved. It's great that you're here at AmFest, and it's great that Charlie puts this on, but the fact that actual tangible results are real and possible is probably the best white pill that you can have, right? So for everybody out there that thinks that it's not possible to affect the government or impact the government, it has never been more possible than it is right now. So if you've been black-pilled or you've had a bad outlook, remember Donald Trump did win. He beat the deep state, he beat the media, and you guys won by calling your representatives and saying, this bill is unacceptable. Do it again. So cheers to you guys.
Merry Christmas. One of the original sins of the censorship industrial complex was that One American News was taken off of DirecTV, not because of any legitimate diminution in people watching that program, because they didn't like the viewpoints that were expressed on that network. I'm going to have a show on One American News because they are a feisty network. I'm a feisty former congressman. I'm going to work hard to get them re-platformed in the places that allow us to get that message out. So I hope you watch the Matt Gates show, 9 o'clock Eastern, starting in January.
Where's Ian at? There he is. All right, everybody. We got one last shout out from our good friend Ian Crossland.
And subscribe to the Post Millennial.
You've got 20 seconds.
Just shout out to you guys, you particularly, with the white hat for coming out, man. You guys are part of this too. We're like all moving this thing together, separate, but together. This is like fucking exhilarating to be a part of this, whether it's up here, out there, in there, where's that? Doesn't matter, man. You're part of this. So make a good life for yourself. Tell yourself a healthy story. You want to be impeccable with your word. Do not sit against yourself with your own word. Tell your story, tell your life story as if you are your best friend. What advice would you give them? Give that to yourself. Be kind to yourself, man. We need you right now. And I want to give a special shout out to Matt Gates for bringing up Graphy earlier. 2025 is the year of reception. All right, so we all need some technology. Where can we find out more?
You can find me on X at LibbyMNs. You can check out thepostmillennial.com and LibbyMNs.com. We have some great contributors, Jack Silva, and me, the score. So come check it out.
I am Phil That Remains on X. You can subscribe to me there. The band is All That Remains. You can check us out on Apple Music, YouTube, Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music. And don't forget the Left Lane is for Crime.
Follow me at Ian Crossland. And Luke, thank you very much for reminding me to shout that out. Follow me online, guys.
We'll be back January 6th. This is it. We're taking 2 weeks off because Christmas is coming up. So everybody's next time for
And thank you for everyone supporting me with my legal fund safety. Means a lot. I'm going through a lot of crap. Everyone is, but I'm more white pill than ever. I'm super excited.
Everybody, thank you all so much for coming.